My name was the only one missing from the paperwork. The envelope on the dining table had already been opened. A travel agency logo. Perfectly formatted documents. A list of passenger names. Dad and Mom. Willow, my sister. Reed, my brother. Below those 4 names, there should have been one more line, but there wasn't. For a moment, I thought I'd missed it. I flipped through the pages, then went back to the beginning. The result was the same. I wasn't included. I checked the booking date at the top of the page. March. 8 months ago. 8 months of family dinners, group chats, phone calls, and no one mentioned it. Not once. You've been so busy lately. My mother's voice came from behind me. Not accusing, not consoling, just stating a fact. The moment I heard those words, my head went quiet before my chest could hurt. I hadn't been asked. I hadn't been consulted. From the start, I hadn't been counted. I gently closed the envelope. I placed it back on the table. I didn't yell. I didn't demand answers. I just picked up my bag. I sensed my mother starting to say something, but I didn't turn around. The moment I stepped outside, the night air felt unbearably cold. As I walked, I kept asking myself the same question. Was this a misunderstanding, or had I just been pretending not to see it all along? Am I the asshole? My family planned a trip, and my name wasn't on the paperwork. I left the house without saying anything. Was that too cold? Or was it reasonable to distance myself? What would you do? As I walked, fragments of that document kept replaying in my mind. Not just the names, the details. Dad. Cabin 4A. Window seat. Ocean view. Mom. Cabin 4A. Vegetarian meals pre-ordered. Willow. Cabin 4B. Connecting room for the kids. Extra pillows requested. Reed. Cabin 4C. Late check-in approved. Someone had filled out every field. Carefully. Thoughtfully. Someone had called the cruise line. Discussed cabin locations. Made sure Willow's kids would be close. Made sure Mom got her dietary needs met. Made sure Dad got his preferred view. All those small considerations. All that planning. And in all those conversations. In all those forms. In all those phone calls over 8 months. My name never came up. Not as, should we ask Brooke? Not as, does Brooke want to come? Not even as, Brooke probably can't make it. Just nothing. I wasn't declined. I wasn't considered and rejected. I simply wasn't part of the equation. The math of the family had been done, and I wasn't a variable they needed to solve for. The streetlights cast a thin glow on the pavement. It wasn't even wet. I tried not to think about where I was heading. If I started thinking, I might stop walking. The sound of cars. The beep of traffic signals. A dog barking in the distance. Everything was the same as usual. But the moment I left my parents' house, the edges of everything seemed sharper. Like my body's inside had been left behind. Only the outside kept moving forward. When I passed through the station turnstile, I checked my phone without thinking. No notifications. The family group chat was silent. Even after I'd seen those documents, no one came after me. Part of me thought that made sense. Another part of me hated that it made sense. I climbed the stairs to my apartment. The metal handrail was cold to the touch. When I inserted the key, my fingers trembled slightly. I couldn't tell if it was nerves or anger. After locking the door, I stood there for a while. I turned on the light. I took one step inside without removing my shoes. The air smelled like an empty room. It was my own place. But it didn't feel like coming home. The atmosphere from my parents' house still clung to the inside of my body. I put my bag on the floor. I sat on the sofa without taking off my shoes. The room was quiet, only the low hum of the refrigerator, and the distant sound of cars. My name is Brooke. I'm 29. I work at a design company. In my family, I was always the one who doesn't cause trouble. Never made a fuss. Never said no one asked. Always there when needed. At least, that's the role I was expected to play. My family is made of 4 people plus 1. Dad and Mom. My sister Willow. My brother Reed. And me, the youngest. Brooke. If you lined us up by age, that's all it was. But my position in the house was always unclear. Willow and Reed were the ones with expectations. School. Extracurriculars. Friendships. When something happened with them, it became a topic. Consultations were held. Decisions took time. I was on the outside of that, the one who'd be fine if left alone. Dad was quiet. He only talked about finances or health. Mom was busy. always coordinating something. Who should meet whom? Who should say what? Who should handle which task? That who was usually me. Willow was good at expressing her feelings. Reed's voice was loud. I was the one in between. The one who swallowed words so the air wouldn't turn sour. There was a pattern to how they asked. Mom always made it sound like I had a choice. I hate to ask, but could you? If it's too much, don't worry. But when she added, it would really help. The decision was already made. If I ask Willow, it'll cause friction. So you tell her. Reed's busy. So you check first. Your father doesn't handle details well. So you look over the paperwork. Every time, I nodded. It wasn't that I couldn't think of reasons to say no, but I could already see how the air would change if I spoke those reasons out loud. Mom's eyebrows would furrow slightly. Dad would go silent. Willow would say, "You can't even do that?" Reed would snap, "Do we need to talk about this now?" And finally, Mom would say, "Sorry, you're the only one I can count on." That phrase was strong. It made me feel relied upon, while making it impossible to refuse. I thought of it as kindness. Thinking of it as kindness helped me keep my place in the family. Before I knew it, I was treated as flexible in the family schedule. Willow and Reed's availability was always checked. Mine was assumed. I pretended to be fine with it, because that way, no one got upset. Not being scolded became confused with being right. I didn't do it on purpose. I just thought it kept the house quieter. I took a deep breath, finally took off my shoes. Then I pulled out a box I'd shoved into the back of my closet. Photo albums, a shoebox, stacks of envelopes. I wasn't sure why I wanted to look at these now, but the blank space on those documents seemed to have summoned other blank spaces. I sat on the floor, opened the album. The first photo was from Christmas. Willow was holding a new laptop. Reed was raising a car key, grinning proudly. I was in the picture holding a small scarf. The price tag was still attached. In the photo, I was smiling properly. Back then, I believed certain things. That the family just didn't have enough money. That wanting things and not getting them was normal. I turned the page. More photos of family trips, mountains, theme parks, wineries. I wasn't in any of them. But I remembered the reasons. You have your internship that week. Can you water the plants? We didn't think you'd enjoy it. I always said, it's fine. Because saying that made the conversation end faster. I thought I was choosing. I believed I was accepting because I decided to, not because I'd been asked. That's how I kept my balance. No one forced me. No one yelled at me. No one threatened me. Back then, I didn't think I wasn't being chosen. I just thought I'd had bad timing. That's all. Just imagining the atmosphere after saying no made accepting seem easier. I closed the album, opened the shoebox next. It was filled with small memories, certificates of achievement, faded ribbons, report cards no one had displayed. When did I become the one not expected to achieve? Or was I always that way? My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. I want to clear up the misunderstanding. The moment I saw those words, my grandmother's voice echoed in my head. When I was a teenager, at a family gathering, I'd sat at the far end of the table. My grandmother sat beside me. She said something quietly. A seat held by others is not truly yours. Back then, I didn't understand what she meant. I was just grateful to have a seat at all. I never thought about what she was trying to tell me. But those documents on the table were real. The fact that my name wasn't there couldn't be erased. I didn't reply. I put the phone face down. Instead, I opened my laptop. The screen showed a household budget spreadsheet, something I'd been using for years. Monthly expenses, transfer records, reasons written in the notes column, Dad's medical bills, Mom's car repair, family emergency expenses. I closed the spreadsheet, turned off the screen, closed the laptop. I couldn't think anymore. So I left earlier than planned and came back to my apartment. Even after closing the album, I sat on the floor for a while. The room was too quiet to stand up. I picked up the next item from the scattered boxes. White envelopes, hospital logos, bank receipts. I hadn't organized them, but they fell into chronological order naturally. When did this start? At first, it was small amounts. In college, when Dad's medication costs went up, I sent a few $dozen a month. I didn't think of it as helping. I thought it was just what family did. When I got my first job and received my first bonus, Mom's car broke down. She said the repair costs were more than expected. I sent money without hesitation. Mom apologized over and over on the phone. I said, "Don't worry about it." When I said that, I could hear her voice lighten. I didn't dislike that change. It made me feel useful. At least, it gave me a sense of being inside the family circle. It wasn't just money. Mom's phone calls rarely ended with just payment discussions. They'd turn into venting, then sighs, then silence. I held the phone to my ear, playing the role of the listener. Dad's health, Willow's marriage, Reed's work complaints. I heard all of it. It helps to talk to you. That's what Mom said. I believed her. I thought listening was supporting. Even when I came home late, exhausted from work, if the phone rang, I answered. Even when I had an early morning, if she said, "Just a few minutes," I didn't refuse. I felt like something important would break if I didn't. I never thought about what that something was. Eventually, the reasons changed. The hospital bills were higher this month. Unexpected expenses piled up. "I really need your help this time." The requests were always polite. The deadlines were always vague. As I entered amounts and reasons into my spreadsheet, I told myself this was temporary. I tried not to think about what Willow and Reed were doing. I could have asked, but I didn't. If I asked, something would change. Not changing felt easier. One summer, I planned a trip for myself for the first time in years. A small town near a lake, not a flashy tourist spot, but a quiet place. I saved for it slowly, brought lunch to work, took freelance jobs on weekends. When I got the booking confirmation email, my chest felt lighter. I was planning ahead. That's what I thought. A few days later, Mom called. Dad's medical expenses were higher than expected. Insurance processing was delayed. The payment deadline was approaching. I looked at my calendar. My trip was exactly 1 month away. "How much do you need?" My voice sounded surprisingly natural asking that. After hanging up, I looked up the cancellation policy. The deadline had passed. There would be a fee. Still, I canceled the reservation. It can't be helped. I said that to the screen, not for anyone else to hear, just to convince myself. After that, the family group chat continued as if nothing had happened. Photos of Willow's kids, Reed's work complaints, Mom's, "How are you feeling?" messages. I didn't mention that my plans had been canceled. I couldn't find a reason to mention it. It wasn't that I didn't want to blame anyone, but the moment I placed blame, I'd look small. I didn't want to be the person who said, "But I sacrificed for you." Besides, I wasn't even sure I was sacrificing. When I clicked the cancel button, part of me felt relieved. Relief that the decision was over. Relief that the uncertainty was gone. As long as that relief existed, I couldn't call myself a victim. A few days later, Mom sent a message. Just 2 words. "Thank you." No emojis. No stickers. I replied, "Glad I could help." That's where the conversation ended. That brief exchange lingered strangely. The family was helped. My plans were lost. That exchange of facts sat there quietly. I processed it as normal. The fact that I could process it that way scared me a little. A few weeks later, Willow sent a message. "On vacation right now." With photos. Snowy scenery. A ship deck. I hit the like button. My finger wouldn't stop. At that moment, I felt something off, but I couldn't say exactly what it was. I opened my laptop, scrolled through the spreadsheet. The number of transfers was more than I'd thought. The reasons were mostly the same phrases, repeated. I calculated the total. When the sum appeared, I immediately closed the screen. But the calculation continued in my head. What if I hadn't sent that money? The documents from my parents' house kept appearing in my mind. The passenger list, the neatly arranged names, the blank space where I should have been. I stopped thinking. Or at least, I tried to stop. I straightened the papers in the box, one by one. That night, the phone rang. It was Willow. "Hey, can I ask you something?" Her voice was light. I answered. "What?" "You're not coming on the trip, right?" I lost my words for a moment. The assumption that I wasn't coming was already there. "I have work." When I said that, Willow replied, "Thought so." That was the end of the conversation. After hanging up, I stared at the screen for a while. I wasn't angry, but I felt something slowly being scraped away. I thought maybe I was the problem, because I never said no, because I always accepted before hearing the details. Maybe I'd locked myself into this role. But if I had said no, would I still be part of the family? Or would I have just become inconvenient? I'd never tested it. I didn't have the courage. I looked at the clock. It was past midnight. I stood up from the floor, started putting the boxes away. The last thing left was an unopened jewelry making kit. I picked it up, stared at it for a while. Not heavy, not light, just there. I wondered why I was afraid to open it. What would change if I did? I still didn't know the answer. I noticed Dad's missed call late at night. One voicemail notification on the screen. I didn't play it right away. If I did, I'd know what he wanted from his tone, from his word choice. Once I knew, I'd have to make a decision. Eventually, I played it. Your mother is worried. Dad's voice was lower than usual. Slower. Can we talk for a bit? He didn't give a reason. That was the reason. I didn't call back. Instead, I went to the kitchen, drank some water. The hand holding the glass trembled slightly. I couldn't tell if it was anger or exhaustion. The next day at work, I couldn't concentrate. Then reception sent a message. A family member is here to see you. I had a bad feeling. That feeling was right. The moment I saw Reed through the glass doors of the lobby, sweat ran cold down my back. My family. At my workplace. That alone made my world start to mix without permission. When Reed saw me, he raised his hand. He wasn't smiling, just the gesture. Practiced. The movement of someone who knows you'll come when called. I'm working. That's what I meant to say. My voice came out small. Even to my own ears, it sounded weak. Reed stepped closer. Didn't lower his voice. Make time. No. People nearby glanced away before the heat could settle. That glance had practiced too. The thin distance people keep when watching family drama. I didn't want to argue in the lobby. Not arguing had always been my job. So I walked toward the exit, not the elevator. I wasn't sure if that was compromise or avoidance. Don't run. That's what Reed said. I wasn't running. I just wasn't ready to talk yet. Let's talk for a minute. He kept going. It wasn't phrased like I had a choice. We went to a nearby cafe. Reed sat first. I sat across from him. The table was smaller than I expected. The distance felt too close. The family's falling apart. That's the first thing Reed said. Because of you. I couldn't deny it immediately. Denying it would sound like I was abandoning responsibility. Mom isn't sleeping. Dad's blood pressure is up. Willow's kids keep asking why they can't see you. I listened silently. Reed's words sounded like a collection of everyone's voices in the family. Individual emotions bundled into one direction. The cruise thing was a misunderstanding. Reed said, Mom thought you were too busy. I cut him off. 8 months. His expression changed. You planned it 8 months ago. I continued, and no one asked me once. Reed started to say something. I didn't wait. Being asked is the problem. My voice was quiet. I wasn't angry, but the words came out straight. Whether I'm busy or not is for me to decide. Reed went silent. So did I. A few seconds felt very long. This is ridiculous. Reed stood up. Do whatever you want. He left without looking back. I stayed seated for a while, watching the coffee in my cup grow cold. That night, I contacted a therapist. My first appointment. The office was quiet. Bookshelves covered an entire wall. The therapist listened to everything I said, then asked one question. What were you most afraid of losing? I couldn't answer right away. My place in the family. When I said that, she nodded. Was that place something you chose? I went silent. I didn't know the answer. The therapist wrote something in her notebook. Then she looked up. Let me ask you something else, she said. When was the last time someone in your family asked what you needed? The question sat between us. I tried to think back. They ask if I'm okay, I said finally. After I've already done something for them. That's different, she said gently. I'm asking when someone asked what you needed before you gave anything. The silence stretched longer this time. I don't think they have, I said. My voice came out smaller than I expected. And when was the last time you told them what you needed? I don't usually need much. Even as I said it, I knew it sounded hollow. Or you've learned not to need anything. She said it without judgment, just observation. I felt something tight in my chest. There's a difference, she continued, between being low maintenance and being invisible. The words landed hard. Being low maintenance means you can take care of yourself, she said. Being invisible means others have stopped seeing you as someone with needs at all. I thought about the cruise documents, the 8 months of planning, all those family dinners where it must have come up. They didn't see me, I said quietly. Did you show them? She asked. Did you ever say, I want to be included in this decision? I shook my head. Why not? Because I stopped. The answer was there. But saying it out loud felt like admitting something I didn't want to face. Because if I asked and they still didn't include me, I said finally, then it wouldn't be an oversight anymore. It would be a choice. The therapist nodded slowly. And as long as it might be an oversight, she said, you don't have to face the possibility that it's a choice. We sat with that for a moment. What if it is a choice? I asked. What if they just don't think of me that way? Then you get to make a choice too, she said, about what kind of relationships you want in your life. She pulled out a piece of paper, drew a simple diagram. 2 circles. This is you, she said, pointing to one circle. This is your family, pointing to the other. The circles overlapped slightly. Most people think family relationships should look like this. She drew the circles almost completely overlapping, where you're so connected, you can't tell where one person ends and another begins. But healthy relationships, she continued, look more like this. She redrew the circles, still touching, but with clear space between them. You can be close, she said, and still be separate people, with separate needs, separate boundaries. I stared at the diagram. I don't think my family would accept that, I said. Then the question is, she said gently, can you accept a relationship where you're not allowed to be separate? I didn't answer, but the circles on that paper stayed in my mind long after I left. On the way home, I checked my bank account. Then I checked the shared account my family had access to. Looking at the transaction history, I saw several withdrawals I didn't remember making. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't angry. I just took screenshots. The next day, I went to the bank, closed the shared account, opened a new account, only in my name. I called my phone company too, changed my number. When they asked why, I said, family. The representative didn't ask anything else. When I got home, I had the locks changed. The spare keys I'd given to my family would no longer work. When I finished all those tasks, I thought my chest would feel heavy, but it didn't. Instead, breathing felt a little easier. That night, Willow called from a different number. Please, can you watch the kids? I was confused. Had the family already left for the cruise? Or was I misunderstanding something? I answered briefly. I can't. After hanging up, I expected guilt to come, but it didn't. Instead, there was anxiety. Was it right to refuse like this? The next day at lunch, I got a call from reception. There's a visitor in the lobby. I had a bad feeling. When I stepped off the elevator, Mom was standing there. Mom. In my office lobby. That alone made the boundary feel like it was dissolving. When Mom saw me, she waved slightly. She wasn't smiling. Just the face of someone who'd been waiting. Just for a moment. That's what she said. I looked around. The receptionist looked away casually. No one was going to intervene. Outside. I said that and walked out of the building. On the sidewalk, Mom stopped. She seemed to be searching for words. About the cruise. Mom said. It really was a misunderstanding. I listened silently. We planned it 8 months ago. You were so busy with work. We didn't want to burden you. The reasons were always polite, but the politeness created distance. I wanted to be asked. I said that. What? I wanted to be asked during the planning stage. I continued. Whether I'm busy or not is my decision. Mom said nothing. I couldn't tell if she couldn't answer or chose not to. I checked my watch. 10 minutes left in my lunch break. I need to go back. I said that and headed toward the building. Mom started to say something, but I didn't turn around. Just before the elevator doors closed, I saw Mom through the glass. She was still standing there, not moving. The next day, Reed sent a message. Car broke down. Need $800. I typed the same response and hit send. I can't help with that. The last call from Mom came soon after. The mortgage payment is short. The medical bills. Just a little would help. I was watching a video about unfinished buildings. Structures that had been under construction for decades. Still standing. I can't help with that. After I said that, Mom asked quietly, what am I supposed to do without you? I didn't answer. I didn't know the answer. Days without contact feel like relief, but when that relief continues, it turns into anxiety. I'm not needed by anyone. That fact is freedom, but it also removes the standard I used to measure my worth. Until now, being needed was how I confirmed my position. Without that, I don't know what to stand on. Distance isn't an answer. It just creates more questions. I don't know if that feeling is right either. That week, a letter arrived from Dad. Inside was a single sheet, an insurance form, policyholder name, account number, signature line, family names listed, explanations following. I checked line by line to see if my name was there. In the end, my name was only in the emergency contact field. I didn't know if that was coincidence or the remnant of a role. I didn't know. But my hands went cold. Suddenly, my grandmother's words came to mind. Being given a seat and that seat being yours are different things. I showed the paper to my therapist. She was silent for a few seconds. Then she spoke. You may be registered as the one they can reach. It can happen out of goodwill, out of habit, or both. I nodded. Either way, I'd been placed in that position. Maybe I didn't have to stay there forever. On the way home, my face reflected in the train window. I couldn't tell if I looked tired or calm. Would I keep hesitating like this? Or could I choose differently while still hesitating? I didn't have an answer. After distancing myself from my family, time felt different. Days weren't shorter or longer, but within the same hours, gaps I hadn't noticed before appeared. In the morning, I wake up before my alarm. Before, I'd reach for my phone first thing, checking for unread notifications, checking for family messages. Now, I leave my phone where it is. I stare at the ceiling, just doing that makes my chest feel unsettled, like I'm neglecting something. At work, the way people look at me has changed. No one says anything directly, but conversations pause sometimes. After my name comes up, the topic shifts. I learned later. Willow had been contacting mutual acquaintances. Brooke's been acting strange lately. She's stopped talking to family. I'm a little worried. It was partly true, and partly not. I hadn't cut off contact. I just wasn't responding. But I didn't feel like explaining. The more I explained, the more I'd look emotional, while they stayed calm. One day, I told my therapist about it. She took notes, nodded quietly. You are the mediator in your family. Now that you've stepped away from that role, they're confused. But if I'm causing people trouble, I stopped mid-sentence. Causing trouble. That possibility was real. Causing inconvenience and causing harm aren't always the same thing. That's what she said. I still couldn't tell if that was true. On the way home that day, I stopped by the bank, checked my account balance. The number was slowly increasing. Before, whenever it increased, I'd immediately think of other uses. What to prepare for next. Who might need help. Now, I just closed the screen. I had no plans for that money. That night, a call came from an unknown number. I didn't answer. It went to voicemail. Mom's voice. We need to talk. Her voice was anxious. Anxiety mixed with urgency and her usual tone. I stopped the playback. Didn't listen to the end. I didn't know if that was the right choice. A few days later, there was a family gathering. I wasn't invited. Or maybe they assumed I'd decline. I couldn't tell the difference. My cousin called afterward. She didn't chat about life. She just stated a fact. Your seat was empty. That word, seat, it stuck with me. Maybe someone had set out a plate for me. Maybe there was just a nameless cup. Or maybe nothing had been prepared at all. And they just said it was empty afterward. I couldn't decide which would be better. If a seat was prepared, I'd be the one who didn't show up. If no seat was prepared, I'd be the one who was never counted in the first place. The difference was significant, but both made me uneasy. I was getting used to both. Getting used to it felt the most disturbing. That night, I ate dinner alone at home. Something simple. Quiet. No one rushing me. While washing the dishes, I thought about something. Did I leave a seat empty in my family? Or was my seat always temporary? I didn't have an answer. On the weekend, it rained. The doorbell rang. I checked the monitor. Mom was on the screen, still holding an umbrella, standing there. I didn't move for a while. Should I open it? Should I not? I didn't know which was right. Eventually, I opened the door, but I stayed at the entrance. Didn't let her inside. Help me. That's what Mom said. Her voice was shaking. I couldn't deny her words immediately. I understood the feeling of needing help. Help with what? I asked. Mom struggled to find words. Money. The house. Dad's health. It was the same as always. I asked one question. If I were in trouble, would you help me the same way? Mom didn't answer. I couldn't tell if she couldn't answer or chose not to. I nodded, then closed the door. Quietly. Slowly. The sound of the lock clicking echoed in the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt like I'd become a cold person. At the same time, I felt like I'd crossed a line I couldn't come back from. The following week, everyone in my family reached out. Let's meet. Let's talk. Let's go back to how things were. The words were different, but the meaning was the same. I agreed to meet at a restaurant. Not my place. Not theirs. When I arrived, the family was already there. The usual arrangement. My spot had already been decided for me. The conversation started with gratitude, then moved to the past. How hard things had been. How much they'd thought of me. I listened. Then I opened a folder. Numbers and dates I checked many times. Records I'd kept for myself. My hand trembled slightly as I placed them down. The trembling wasn't anger. It was fear. This is what I sent. I said that and laid out the papers. I didn't explain. I just placed them there. Silence fell. Someone cried. Someone got angry. Someone stayed silent. I didn't participate in any of it. I slid a paper with my conditions across the table. I wasn't sure if it was negotiation or defense. The family looked at it. They didn't respond right away. I stood up. The air outside was cold, slightly damp. On the way home, I kept thinking, did I abandon my family? Or did I finally confirm my own position? I still don't know the answer. After meeting with my family, nothing happened for a while. That was the most unsettling part. No response came. No agreement to my conditions. No arguments. No rejection. Just silence. I could interpret that silence positively or negatively. Depending on which way I leaned, my feelings swung wildly. So I tried not to assign meaning to it. I focused on work. Woke up at the same time. Walked the same route. Sat in the same seat. I finished work earlier more often than before. I'm not sure why. Maybe because my head was quieter without family messages. I started making plans for myself again. Small things. A hair appointment. A movie on the weekend. Time to read a book I'd been putting off. These were plans I didn't need to explain to anyone. I opened my banking app less often. I knew the balance was increasing. The habit of checking it for reassurance was slowly fading. One day, a letter arrived from Mom. The envelope was thin. The message was short. You don't have to answer right away. Please take time to think. Just those 2 lines. Not an apology. Not a demand. I read it a few times. Then put it in my desk drawer. I didn't write back. Maybe I couldn't. Maybe not writing back was its own message. I was still uncertain. Was what I did setting a boundary? Or was it running away? If I call it a boundary, I protected myself. If I call it running away, I abandoned my family. When someone at work talks about their family, I don't know how to react. I put on a vague smile. Let the moment pass. At night, while folding laundry, I think about something. If I hadn't changed anything, what kind of life would I be living now? I stopped looking at family photos, the albums, the folders on my phone. I haven't opened them. Sometimes I think about Mom's letter. Part of me feels guilty for not replying. Continuing to choose without knowing the right answer is more exhausting than I expected. On a weekend afternoon, I walk around my neighborhood. No particular destination. I just choose routes that let me come back without going too far. The feeling of being able to return. That's what I need right now. On the way back, I stop at a small park. A parent and child sit together. Not particularly happy. Not upset. Just ordinary time. I look at that scene. My chest feels warm. But at the same time, I notice myself measuring distance. Do I want to get closer? Do I want to stay away? Or neither? I don't have an answer yet. But more than before, the feeling of standing on my own feet is clearer. Whether that's good or a sign I'm losing something, I can't tell right now. Last weekend, my best friend Sage came over. I made a simple meal. We sat at the table. She didn't bring up my family. I was grateful for that. After eating, I picked up a small box from the shelf, the jewelry-making kit I'd never opened. You still haven't opened that? Sage said. I looked at the box. Something I'd wanted when I was 9. Something I'd given up because it was too expensive. Something I'd bought for myself as an adult. I broke the seal. The sound was small, less dramatic than I expected. Inside were colorful beads and thin wires. I couldn't picture the perfect shape, but I started working. The first few attempts didn't work. The wire bent in the wrong places. Beads rolled off the table. I had to start over 3 times. Sage watched quietly. She didn't offer to help. Didn't tell me I was doing it wrong. She just refilled my coffee and waited. On the fourth try, something clicked. Not because I'd figured out the right way, but because I'd stopped trying to make it look like the picture on the box. I chose beads that I liked, not the ones that matched, not the ones that made sense together, just the ones that felt right when I held them. Dark blue, deep green, a single amber bead in the center. The pattern wasn't symmetrical. One side had more green, the other leaned toward blue. But when I held it up, it looked like something. Like water meeting earth, like a small stream finding its way. Sage leaned forward. "That's beautiful," she said. I wasn't sure if it was beautiful, but it was mine. I turned it over in my hands. The imperfections were obvious. A gap where two beads didn't quite meet. A wire twisted slightly too tight on one end. But there was something about it. Something that felt more honest than perfection would have been. "You know what I like about it?" Sage said. I looked up. "It looks like it has a story," she said. "Not like something mass-produced. Like someone made choices. Choices. I thought about all the times I'd let others choose for me. The trip I'd canceled. The money I'd sent. The seat that was never offered. This wasn't perfect, but it was mine in a way nothing else had ever been. The shape was uneven. It wouldn't sell in a store. But I didn't stop halfway. When I put the finished piece around my neck, I felt a slight weight. The weight wasn't unpleasant. This wasn't something someone chose for me. Not a seat someone prepared. A shape I made with my own hands. Just for myself. I could hear Sage making coffee. 2 cups on the table. Chairs facing each other. Not an empty seat waiting for someone. A space that's just filled. I'm here. A few weeks later, a short message came from Willow. "How are you?" That's all it said. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened the window. Outside air flowed into the room. I left my phone where it was. Went to the kitchen. Took out 2 cups. Tomorrow, Sage is coming over. The weekend after that, I'm going to the lake alone. The plans written on my calendar were all things I chose. Not for someone else. For myself. That fact just sits there. Quietly. I'm still uncertain. Was distancing myself from my family the right choice? I still don't have an answer. What would you do?